This is just hard to believe. He made a positive impact on officers, myself, the community. People calling me up saying, is that the officer that used to direct traffic for us at the school?
This Wagaman neighborhood is still in shock after a Thanksgiving Day tragedy that claimed the life of a St. John the Baptist Parish Sheriff's deputy.
November 27th, 2025. Thanksgiving night in Wagaman, Louisiana. A marked police cruiser sits in the driveway of a home on Marigold Lane. Inside, the smell of roasted turkey still hangs in the air. Relatives gather, plates half empty, laughter fading as voices begin to rise. An argument ignites between two brothers. One of them, 35-year-old Deputy Shaquille O'Neal Guerin, has just finished a 12-hour shift protecting his community. He's unarmed, off-duty, just stopping by his mother's house for a quick bite before heading home to his wife and 3 kids. The other brother, 32-year-old Darius Guerin, walks toward the back bedroom. When he returns, he's gripping a 9mm pistol. 7 gunshots rip through the Thanksgiving silence. 5 bullets tear into Shaquille's back. 2 more slam into his side. The deputy, a man trained to face armed suspects, domestic disputes, and life-threatening situations, collapses. Darius grabs cell phones from terrified relatives, blocking them from calling for help. Then he does something that still haunts investigators. He drags his brother's body out of the house and into the street. He parks his car next to the corpse and pops open the trunk. But before he can finish whatever he's planning, sirens wail in the distance. Darius jumps in his car and vanishes into the night. What accusation was so explosive it made a man execute his own brother on Thanksgiving? Why 7 shots, 5 to the back, 2 to the side? And what was Darius planning to do with that open trunk before deputies arrived? Welcome to Shadows of Crime, where we expose the darkest truths hiding in plain sight. If you're ready for stories that'll keep you up at night, smash that subscribe button, hit the like, and share this with someone who loves real crime. Drop a comment and tell us, where are you watching from today? This is the story of a family destroyed in 7 gunshots. Before we talk about how Shaquille O'Neal Guerin died, you need to understand who he was when he was alive. 35 years old, husband to Roxanne, father to 3 young children who waited for him to come home every night. For 8 years, Shaquille wore the badge of the St. John the Baptist Parish Sheriff's Office, working both uniform patrol and the detective bureau. He wasn't the type of cop who chased headlines or glory. He was the guy who showed up, did the work, and went home. In 2019, he received a life-saving award, recognition for an act of bravery that could have made front-page news. But Shaquille didn't talk about it. He just kept showing up for his shifts, kept protecting people, kept doing what he believed was right. Colleagues remember him standing in the pouring rain, directing traffic so school children could cross safely. Parents would call the sheriff's office weeks later, asking, "Is that the officer who helped us at the school?" That was Shaquille. Quiet, reliable. The kind of presence you didn't notice until it was gone. Sheriff Mike Tregra described him as someone with the heart of a public servant, a man who carried positivity into every shift. Even when the job got tough, and it always does, Shaquille remained optimistic. He'd joke with his coworkers that no matter how bad the season looked, the New Orleans Saints would win a Super Bowl. They laughed, but they loved him for it. That's who he was, the eternal optimist. Law enforcement ran in his blood. His father had served with the St. James Sheriff's Office, so Shaquille grew up understanding the weight of the badge, the risks that came with it, and the responsibility to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. He knew that every time he put on that uniform, he could face danger. Armed suspects, domestic violence calls, traffic stops that turned deadly. For 8 years, He faced those dangers willingly. He mentored younger officers, teaching them how to de-escalate situations, how to read a scene, how to stay calm when chaos erupted around them. He was the kind of cop rookies looked up to, not because he was loud or aggressive, but because he was steady, dependable, unhuman. And at the end of every shift, he went home to Roxanne and their 3 kids. He'd kiss them goodnight, tuck them in, and promise to come back the next day. On November 27th, 2025, Sh0t finished another 12-hour shift. Thanksgiving Day. He could have gone straight home to his family, but he decided to stop by his mother's house on Marigold Lane. Just a quick visit. Grab some food, say hello to relatives, then head back to Roxanne and the kids. He never made it home. The man who spent 8 years protecting strangers couldn't protect himself from the person who should have been safest, his own brother. Wagaman, Louisiana, a working-class community where modest homes line quiet streets, where neighbors know each other's names, where kids grow up playing in the same yards their parents once did. Marigold Lane was one of those streets, the kind of place where people waved from their driveways, where holiday decorations went up every year without fail, where families celebrated milestones together. The Guerin family had lived on Marigold Lane for over 20 years. 20 years. Neighbors watched Sh0t and Darius grow from boys into men. They saw Sh0t become a deputy, get married, have children. They saw Darius become a father to a 5-year-old son. The Guerins weren't strangers. They were fixtures in that community, familiar faces at block parties, at grocery stores, at school drop-offs. When neighbors talked about them later, they all said the same thing. You know people your whole life, and then something like this happens. Because here's the truth about Darius Guerin. There were no red flags, no criminal record, no history of violence, no restraining orders, no police reports, no documented disputes. On paper, he was just another 32-year-old man living his life, a father, a brother, a son. But family violence doesn't always announce itself with flashing lights and police reports. It doesn't always leave bruises you can photograph or threats you can record. Sometimes it festers quietly behind closed doors, buried under years of resentment, misunderstandings, or accusations that never get resolved. And sometimes, like on Thanksgiving night, 2025, it explodes. The relationship between Sh0t and Darius remains unclear. Court testimony revealed that Darius believed Sh0t had harmed his 5-year-old son, but no details were provided about what allegedly happened. No investigation was ever opened. No evidence was ever presented, just an accusation, one that Darius carried with him until it detonated in his mother's living room. Neighbors didn't hear arguments leading up to that night. No one reported fights or shouting matches. No one saw warning signs. The Guerins seemed like any other family navigating the complexities of life. Work, kids, holidays, obligations. But inside that house on Marigold Lane, something was building. A belief, a suspicion, a rage that Darius kept hidden until the moment he walked into that back bedroom and came out holding a 9mm pistol. The same street where children once played, where families gathered for Thanksgiving dinners, where the Guerins had lived for over 2 decades. That street became a crime scene. Yellow tape replaced holiday decorations. The blood stained the pavement where Sh0t's body had been dragged, and the neighbors who thought they knew the Guerins were left asking themselves, how did we miss this? The answer? You can't always see it coming. Here's the thing. How well do you really know your family? Drop a comment. Have you ever felt tension at a holiday gathering that made you uncomfortable? Don't just scroll past this. Share your story. Someone reading might need to hear it. November 27th, 2025. Thanksgiving Day. While most people were carving turkey and watching football, Deputy Sh0t Guerin was working. A full 12-hour shift, Holidays don't stop crime, and someone has to patrol the streets while families gather around dinner tables. Shaquille was that someone. By 5:30 in the evening, his shift finally ended. He could have driven straight home to Roxanne and the kids, could have kicked off his boots, changed out of his uniform, and spent the rest of the night with his own family. But he decided to make a quick stop first. His mother's house on Marigold Lane. Just a quick visit. Grab a plate of food. Say hello to relatives. Then head home. He pulled his marked patrol unit into the driveway. Before walking inside, he did what every responsible officer does. He secured his duty weapon and gun belt, leaving them locked in the vehicle. By the book. Professional. Even off duty, even at his mother's house, Shaquille followed protocol. Inside, the house smelled like Thanksgiving. Roasted turkey. Sweet potato pie. The warmth of family gathered together. Relatives filled the rooms, conversations flowing, laughter bouncing off the walls, and plates being passed around. It looked like every other Thanksgiving celebration happening across the country that night. Darius was there too, 32 years old, Shaquille's younger brother, father to a 5-year-old son. On the surface, everything seemed normal. 2 brothers, same family, same holiday table. But beneath the surface, something was festering. Shaquille walked into his mother's house unarmed, off duty, just trying to grab some food and see his family. He had no idea that his younger brother was about to execute him. The holiday warmth was a mask, and beneath it, rage was waiting to explode. The argument started shortly after Shaquille walked through the door. Voices rose. Darius confronted his older brother, accusing him of harming his 5-year-old son. Shaquille, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, just trying to grab food and head home, tried to respond. But Darius wasn't listening. His voice grew louder, angrier. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Relatives watched, uncomfortable but not yet alarmed. Family arguments happen, and especially during holidays when old wounds resurface. This seemed like just another disagreement, tense but manageable. It didn't get physical. Not yet. Then Darius turned and walked toward the back bedroom. When he came back, he was holding a 9mm pistol. What happened next lasted seconds, but it shattered a family forever. 5 gunshots tore into Shaquille's back. 2 more slammed into his side. 7 bullets total. Shaquille O'Neal Guerin, a deputy trained to handle armed suspects, a man who had faced danger for 8 years, collapsed in his mother's house, unarmed, off duty, just trying to see his family on Thanksgiving. His brother had executed him. The room erupted into chaos. Relatives screamed. Some froze in shock. Others tried to move toward Shaquille, but Darius wasn't finished. Then he grabbed cell phones from the hands of terrified family members, ripping them away to stop anyone from calling 911. Relatives who moments ago had been passing plates of turkey were now scrambling for their lives, running out of the house toward a neighbor's home to call for help. Inside, Darius stood over his brother's body. Then he did something that still haunts investigators. He grabbed Shaquille by the arms and dragged him out of the house. Blood smeared across the floor, trailing behind the body, as Darius pulled his brother through the doorway and into the street. He left him lying on the pavement of Marigold Lane, the same street where they'd grown up, where neighbors had watched them play as kids, where the Guerin family had lived for over 20 years. Darius walked to his car, parked it next to Shaquille's body, and popped open the trunk. Was he planning to move the body? Dispose of it? Stage the scene to look like something else? We'll never know. Because in the distance, sirens began to wail. Neighbors had called 911. Jefferson Parish deputies were responding, and Darius knew he was out of time. He slammed the trunk shut, jumped into the driver's seat, and sped off into the Thanksgiving night, leaving his brother's body bleeding in the street, leaving his terrified family behind, leaving a crime scene that would haunt Marigold Lane forever. When deputies arrived moments later, they found Shaquille lying motionless on the pavement. They tried to save him. Paramedics worked desperately to revive him, but it was too late. Deputy Shaquille O'Neal Guerin was pronounced dead at the scene. 7 gunshots, 5 to the back, 2 to the side. Executed by the person who should have been family. Pause for a second. Imagine being one of those relatives, watching your family member get shot, phones ripped from your hands, running for your life. Would you freeze or fight? Comment below. And if you've ever witnessed violence and stayed silent, this is your wake-up call. Speak up. Always. 5:30 in the evening. Thanksgiving night. Jefferson Parish deputies arrived at Marigold Lane to find a scene straight out of a nightmare. A body lying in the street. Blood pooling on the pavement. Shell casings scattered across the ground. Relatives hysterical, pointing in the direction the shooter had fled. And the victim, Deputy Shaquille O'Neal Guerin, still in his off-duty clothes, still wearing the watch he'd checked just minutes earlier when his shift ended. Paramedics rushed to his side. Deputies tried everything they could, but 7 gunshots don't leave much room for miracles. Shaquille was pronounced dead at the scene. The realization hit fast. This wasn't just a murder. This was a cop killer on the loose, and he was armed, dangerous, and had just proven he was willing to kill family. That made him unpredictable in the worst possible way. Alerts went out immediately. Every unit in Jefferson Parish, every neighboring jurisdiction. Descriptions of Darius Guerin and his vehicle flooded police radios. Officers who had been sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner with their own families dropped their forks, grabbed their keys, and headed out. One of their own had been killed. The hunt was on. For the next hour and a half, deputies canvassed the area. They checked gas stations, convenience stores, side streets. They pulled surveillance footage. They interviewed witnesses. And they waited for the break that would lead them to Darius. At 7 o'clock, roughly 90 minutes after the shooting, a Jefferson Parish deputy spotted Darius's vehicle near the intersection of Ames and Lapalco Boulevards. Lights flashed. Sirens wailed. The deputy signaled for Darius to pull over. He didn't. Instead, he hit the gas. What followed was a high-speed chase through the streets of Jefferson Parish on Thanksgiving night. Families driving home from holiday dinners found themselves caught in the chaos. Police cruisers screaming past them, a suspect vehicle weaving through traffic, sirens cutting through the cool November air. Darius wasn't just running, he was fleeing like a man with nothing left to lose, because he didn't, and he'd already crossed a line most people can't even imagine, killing his own brother in cold blood. What was one more crime? The chase tore through suburban streets, past homes still decorated with Thanksgiving wreaths, past driveways where kids' bikes sat abandoned. Deputies stayed on him, coordinating over the radio, blocking off exits, tightening the net. The pursuit finally ended in Lafitte, a small community south of New Orleans. Darius's car screeched to a stop in the 100 block of Jean Lafitte Boulevard. But he wasn't done running. He jumped out of the vehicle and bolted on foot, sprinting through yards and alleyways in a desperate attempt to disappear into the night. Deputies gave chase, adrenaline pumping, knowing this man had already killed once and could easily kill again. Somewhere along his escape route, and Darius made a decision. He ditched the 9mm pistol, the same weapon he'd used to execute his brother, tossing it aside in the hope that without it, the evidence against him would be weaker. It didn't matter. Deputies tackled him within minutes. He hit the ground hard, hands yanked behind his back, cuffs snapping into place. The chase was over. As they hauled him to his feet, Darius asked a question that would later be repeated in court. What would you do if a person harmed your child? Not an apology, not remorse, a justification. Later, in custody, Darius admitted to the shooting. He confessed to pulling the trigger, to firing 7 bullets into his brother's body, to dragging him into the street. But the question lingered. What would you do? The answer for most people isn't murder. For Darius Guerin it was. Darius Guerin was booked into the Jefferson Parish Correctional Facility and charged with 3 crimes: second-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and aggravated flight from an officer. Second-degree murder, the intentional killing of another human being. 7 bullets, 5 to the back, 2 to the side, execution style. Obstruction of justice, grabbing cell phones from relatives to prevent them from calling 911, then fleeing the scene. Aggravated flight from an officer, the high-speed chase through Jefferson Parish that ended with him ditching the murder weapon and running on foot. On December 16, 2025, Darius appeared in Jefferson Parish Magistrate Court for his preliminary hearing. Detective Philip Hedrick Jr. took the stand and laid out the case piece by piece. Jefferson Parish Criminal Commissioner Paul Schneider reviewed the testimony and ruled there was probable cause to continue holding Darius Guerin as charged. Darius's attorney requested a bond reduction. Commissioner Schneider denied it. Bond remained at $700,000. If convicted of second-degree murder in Louisiana, Darius faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. The legal system will grind forward. There will be motions, hearings, maybe a trial. But no verdict will bring Shaquille back. No sentence will undo what happened on Marigold Lane. No amount of justice will give Roxanne her husband back or return a father to 3 children. How does someone with no history of violence escalate to 7 gunshots? This wasn't a single shot fired in the heat of the moment. This wasn't a struggle over a weapon. This was 5 bullets to the back and 2 to the side. Darius believed something that wasn't true, and it cost his brother's life. How many of us hold on to grudges, accusations, or assumptions without proof? Comment below. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? Or accused someone without evidence? This is your moment to reflect. Don't skip this. Roxanne Guerin became a widow at 35 years old. 3 children lost their father on Thanksgiving night. They'll grow up hearing stories about Deputy Shaquille O'Neal Guerin, the man who stood in the rain directing traffic for schoolchildren, the officer who received a life-saving award in 2019, the eternal optimist who believed the Saints would win a Super Bowl. But they'll also grow up knowing their uncle killed their dad. That's the burden they'll carry for the rest of their lives. The Guerin matriarch, the mother who hosted Thanksgiving dinner that night, lost 1 son to death and 1 son to prison. She'll visit Shaquille's grave and Darius behind bars. 2 sons, 1 holiday, both gone. Marigold Lane will never be the same. Crime scene tape replaced holiday decorations. Blood stained the pavement where neighbors had once watched kids ride bikes. Families who had lived side by side for over 20 years now avoid eye contact, unsure what to say, unsure how to process what happened on their street. Trust shattered in 7 gunshots. The St. John the Baptist Parish Sheriff's Office held memorial services for Shaquille. Colleagues who had worked alongside him for 8 years stood in uniform, saluting a man who had been more than a deputy. He'd been a mentor, a friend, a steady presence in a chaotic job. When Sheriff Mike Treasure spoke at the memorial, his voice heavy with grief. I can't accept that he was killed by a family member. None of them could. Because Shaquille had faced armed suspects, domestic violence calls, high-speed chases. He'd put his life on the line for 8 years protecting strangers. And in the end, the danger didn't come from the streets he patrolled. It came from his own brother. His legacy is complicated now. The life-saving award, the years of service, the optimism, all cut short by family violence. His children will hear stories of a hero father, but they'll also carry the trauma of how he died, executed on Thanksgiving by someone who should have loved him. That's the cost of this crime. A family destroyed, a community shattered, a legacy forever stained. So how do we stop this from happening again? First, accusations involving children are explosive. Verify before acting. Darius believed something, true or not, and it led to murder. If you suspect abuse, report it to authorities. Call Child Protective Services. Call the police. Don't take vigilante action. Ever. Second, secure firearms, especially during high-stress gatherings. Darius accessed a gun mid-argument. If you own weapons, lock them up. Store ammunition separately. Holidays bring tension. Don't give rage easy access to deadly force. Third, recognize escalation signs. Arguments where someone grabs phones, blocks exits, or makes threats aren't normal family disputes. Those are red flags. Leave immediately. Go to a neighbor's house. Call for help. Don't wait to see if it gets worse. Fourth, family violence is invisible until it's not. Darius had no criminal record, no history of violence, no warning signs, but that doesn't mean there was no danger. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Fifth, intervention saves lives. If Darius was dealing with delusions, paranoia, or untreated issues, early intervention could have saved 2 lives, Shaquille's and Darius's future. Prevention starts with awareness, and awareness starts with you. Shaquille O'Neal. Guerin spent 8 years protecting strangers. He faced armed suspects, responded to domestic violence calls, stood in the rain so school children could cross safely. He dedicated his life to keeping people safe, but he couldn't protect himself from his own brother. Darius Guerin will spend decades in prison, possibly the rest of his life, haunted by the question he asked deputies when they arrested him. What would you do if a person harmed your child? But the answer isn't murder. It's never murder. 3 children will grow up without their father. Roxanne will raise them alone, answering impossible questions. Why did Uncle Darius do this? Did Daddy suffer? Will we ever feel safe again? And here's the question that should keep you up at night. What if Darius was wrong? What if the accusation was a misunderstanding, a delusion? A moment misinterpreted and twisted into something it never was. 7 bullets can't be taken back. A life can't be restored. And if Darius was wrong, if there was no harm, no abuse, no reason, then he executed his brother over nothing. That's the horror of this case. Not just what happened, but what might never have needed to happen at all. If this story shook you, don't just move on. Subscribe to Shadows of Crime for more cases that'll make you question everything. Like this video, share it, and drop a comment. What's the one thing you'll do differently after hearing this? Stay safe. Stay vigilant. And remember, the people closest to you can be the most dangerous.